Hi, Angie.
Hi, I told Chen Yan that we should sync up to make you present this to both of us. So we're
Oh,
gonna wait for her.
okay. You're the first person I've gotten so far.
Okay, she said she's gonna be there in a sec. I figured this is good for efficiency and so that you have a larger audience than one. Get some
Yeah.
good practice.
Hello.
Hi, Chen.
Hello.
How do you feel now?
Squad's all here.
Oh, that's a pretty poster. Nice
Yeah,
choice.
Thank you. I made it myself.
that's
Nice.
very nice.
All right, so I'll start. So basically, I tried to explore the question, can we use a couple of demographic indicators, in this instance, home state and age, to explain members of Congress's activity on technology-related bills? So I was inspired to research this question because of all the technology legislation that's been in the news recently. Elderly members of Congress have been criticized for their mishandling of technology policy in the 21st century, and tech companies have been accused with tampering with our democracy and electoral process. While these issues have not been strongly legislated by Congress, it is clear from public opinion data that the public wants much stronger government legislation on these issues. Technology mainly affects younger people, with Congress and congressional leadership getting older and older and thus less in touch with the technology views of our younger population. So from this, I drew two hypotheses. First, that younger politicians having a stronger connection to tech issues will support more technology legislation. And secondly, that technology will be a higher legislative priority for members of Congress from which states are a major, from states where the tech sector is a major economic contributor. So basically, pork barreling or acting as a conduit for their uh, states' residents' economic interests. So I collected all the data on all technology bills introduced between the 100th and 114th Congresses. That's basically since 1987, which is about 2,700 bills. And I identified all the co-sponsors, 7,500 co-sponsors on these bills. And I produced these two graphs. So this top graph represents the age distribution for all technology bill co-sponsors in this time frame, in top in the Senate and then bottom in the House. And then this second graph right here. Oh, can you guys see my mouse?
Yes, we can
Yeah.
see your
Okay.
cursor.
Awesome cursor. Yeah.
Here,
Okay.
here.
So the bottom graph represents the age distribution of all members of Congress in that same time frame, and again, Senate on top and House on the bottom. As we can see, the median age for the technology bill co-sponsors is significantly younger in both the Senate and House compared to their counterparts generally. The median being 61 in the Senate for the technology group and 65 for the um, general group, and 56 in the technology group for the House, and 59, 3 years older, in the general group. So this did confirm my first hypothesis that younger politicians are more active on technology legislation. I did a statistical test and it turned out to be statistically significant. However, as we can see on my second graph, which indicates the percent of the state economy in which the tech sector makes up, compared to members of Congress's activity on technology legislation for members of Congress from each of these states. So on the right, we have like high tech states like Washington, California, New York, and Georgia. All have large proportions of their economy coming from the technology sector, but there does not seem to be a strong relationship between these two variables. As we can see, this trend line is not representative of the data. So my second hypothesis is not confirmed as an accurate indicator of members of Congress's activity on technology legislation. So in the end, one out of my two hypotheses was confirmed. Oh, and if we look here, so this graph has like several outliers, having low tech sector percentage but high activity on technology legislation, like up here and these ones. It's kind of weird. So I wanted to learn why that is the case. So I created these two maps down here. They're kind of small, but we can see that there are some states that stand out for having high activity on technology bills that you would not suspect. For example, in the Senate, Montana has a lot of um, activity on technology legislation. same as Minnesota and Arkansas. And in the House, we see Oregon, Colorado, New Hampshire have high activity on technology legislation, even though they have quite small tech economies.
Yeah, I think this is great, Alex.
Yeah, this is interesting. I have a few questions if you like found anything about it.
Yeah.
One, what's the distribution of the bills that were passed since you said this is since like 1980 something? What was like how many of that is in the past like decade?
Yeah, so I selected the beginning date as 1987 as being like the beginning of the modern technology era. The
Yeah.
Congress actually passed much more technology related legislation in the late 1990s, which is surprising. A huge spike, like 3 times more than they do now. This can be attributed to 2 reasons. First, Congress passed a lot more bills back then. In the late 1990s, Congress passed about 60% more bills than they do nowadays. And secondly, there was a lot of fear about Y2K at the time. So, yeah. Okay. So I identified 2,700 bills, but that does not necessarily mean all of them became law. So as we know, I don't know if you guys know, but any legislator can introduce a bill to Congress with basically no ramifications. So that results in a lot of bills being introduced that like are never even intended to become law. And I did a little bit of analysis, and about 400 of the 2,700 bills that were introduced actually became law. Not that many.
Wow. Okay.
So Alex, did you use any data scraping methods to scrape all the data, or did you just manually collect those data?
Yes, I did. So obviously collecting the co-sponsors on 2,700 bills is a bit of a daunting task. So what I did was I used a Python web scraper called Parsub, and I used that to collect all of the bill co-sponsors for all of these bills I identified. So this bill database that I talk about here, the PAP Congressional Bills Data, is actually part of a UT Department of Government project where we try to identify all the bills and like code them and like state what they're about, who introduced them, did they pass, were they introduced in the House or the Senate, that kind of data. And I work with them to create this data set, and that data set was like really useful in helping identify like what a technology bill is. And using that data, so I like had like the bill title, and then I could go to this GovTrack website, which is basically just a website that tracks government activity. And yeah, on that website I scraped all the names, and I also scraped off the biographical data. So to create this chart, I needed to have the age of every co-sponsor, but not only that, the age in which they were during that specific Congress, because you know it would change over time. And I also scraped that information.
Yeah, actually, what you just described is interesting. Like, could you be more specific about how your team, like you trained the algorithm to know what is like technology bill? Like, what specifically is technology bill?
So actually, the way we code bills is done manually. But what we do is we have this like long code book containing, I think it's about 400 different codes, and they use a lot of undergraduates and PhD students to code each of the bills manually. But after that, we can use the we can write a script to transfer the data from the code set. So like it would be like www.govtrack/ and then we would write the script to put in like the Congress number, and then slash the chamber, so it would be like House or Senate, and then like another slash, and then the bill number, and then that would give us the correct GovTrack website. And then to scrape the actual GovTrack website, I only need to identify because every single one of the websites is like an identical layout with like the same information being laid out on each of the websites. I would only need to write the Python script once to collect the information from each of the websites.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
awesome.
Thank you.
Was there any other interesting connections that you found? Maybe not related to your hypotheses, but other things?
Yeah, totally. So, this is actually a really interesting insight that I found. But as we can see in these like two different graphs, the number of bills being introduced by each party is actually like relatively the same, which is kind of strange because in many issues, for example, if we're to think about like welfare or like defense spending, these issues, like most issues in the United States, are like heavily dominated by one party. In welfare's case, it's the Democratic Party. In defense spending's case, it's the Republican Party. So this project is actually like shocking in that it does not rely on like a distinction between the two parties, which it makes it quite special, if I do say so myself. Also, the age distributions, like generally, are also quite the same, which I found surprising because I thought in many democratic states, the seats are like so safe that there's rarely turnover between the seats. So if we think about like, oh, who's the senator from California? Barbara Boxer is like 1,000 years old, and we have like Dianne Feinstein, who's also 1,000 years old, Nancy Pelosi, all these ancient democratic leaders. But it turned out to not be the case.
Yeah. That is interesting.
We can see in the Senate, there's like one Republican that goes on to, he's 102.
Wait, what?
Yeah, this is just, you see this like little red line here, right?
Yes.
It's just one guy, and then
Who is that?
it's Strom Thurmond from South Carolina. He died in 2003, but he served in the Senate since like the 1960s, and he first ran on a Dixiecrat segregationist platform.
That's great.
Yeah, he was kind of a character, but he served for like 1,000 years.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. I was aware of him. I didn't realize he was so old when he had.
Strong. I can't believe it's like it's so shocking to like believe that like he was like a overt racist. Like that was literally his platform. Like there's no subliminal messaging, and he served in the Senate until like 2004.
That's not that long ago.
It's one thing to be like subliminally racist, but it's a totally different thing to be overtly racist.
This is awesome. I think visually, lovely, organized well, presentation wise, the enthusiasm, the information, the clarity was all there.
I agree.
Yeah. And answering our questions as well. Very
Yeah.
excellent.
Great
Please.
job, Alex.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Please vote for my poster so I can get the audience participation award. It comes with money. I'll send you guys the link.
Okay.
Just fill out a form.
We'll make sure everybody tries to fill it out.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
We'll catch you both later.
Later.
See you all.
See ya.
Resume the recording. Somebody wanted me to record this.
Oh, well, very good. It'll be here for all posterity.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll do my.
Outlive you.
Maybe. I don't know. I envision living forever. Who knows where medical science will develop in the next 70 years.
That's right.
All right. So,
Oh, this looks very nice.
thank you.
Very nice.
You like the orange? It's very orange. That's Texas's color.
Yeah, it is. It's in Texas colors. It's a nice orange. It's a very soft orange. It's good.
Mm-hmm. Some people make bold visual choices, but I chose to make a more subdued poster. All right. So, the Silicon Hill. What affects congressional technology activity? Clever name, if I do say so myself.
Yes, I thought it was too, and I didn't even know the full extent of your presentation. So
All right, so what is my research goal? So basically, I use this question to guide all of my research. Can we use a couple demographic indicators, in this instance, home state and age, to explain members of Congress's activity on technology-related bills? So what inspired me to make this kind of research question? Elderly members of Congress have been widely criticized for their handling of technology policy in the 21st century, and technology companies have been accused of tampering with our democracy and electoral process. Congress has been quite hesitant to act on these important issues. However, the thirst for new legislation is significant, as Gallup's most important problem poll found that science and technology issues increased 100-fold between 2014 and 2018. Right around the contentious 2016 election. Technology mainly affects younger people, and congressional leadership, as well as Congress in general, has been getting older and less in touch with the thoughts of the younger generation on these important technology issues. So from this, I drew two hypotheses. First, that younger politicians having a stronger connection to technology issues will support more technology legislation. And second, that technology will be a higher legislative priority for members of Congress from states in which the tech sector is a major economic contributor, acting first as a conduit for their citizens' economic interests, as well as being a pork barreling behavior. So, how did I do this? I identified all the technology bills introduced between the 100th and 114th Congresses, and from that, I
Wow.
identified all the co-sponsors for those bills. So basically, 100th Congress was 1987. It began, which I classified as the beginning of the modern age of technology legislation in Congress.
1987.
Correct.
Okay.
Also, 100 is just a round number, and I like it.
Mhm.
So from this data, I created these two graphs. This top graph represents the age distribution for all technology bill co-sponsors in this time frame. So all of the 7,536 co-sponsors. And in this bottom graph, we have the age distribution for Congress people generally within the same time frame. As we can see, the median ages for the technology co-sponsors is significantly younger in both the Senate and the House. So the top graph here is the Senate and the House, and again, Senate, House. Is significantly younger for the technology group than the general group. We can see that the median age for the technology bill co-sponsors in the Senate is 61 years compared to 56 years generally. And for the House, we can see the technology group is 56 years in the House and 59 generally, a 3-year decrease. I ran a 2-sample difference of the means t-test, and it surpassed conventional signs of statistical significance, confirming my first hypothesis to be true, that younger politicians are more active on technology bills. As for my second hypothesis, I created this second graph, where we have the percent of the state economy that the tech sector makes up as the x-axis, and the y-axis represents the activity for members of Congress from each of these states, activity on technology legislation. We can see on the far right, we have states with high tech sector activity, such as Washington, California, Massachusetts, and Georgia. And on the far left, we're going to have states with low technology activity like Wyoming, Arkansas, etc. However, we can see that there is not a strong relationship between these two variables, as the data, the distribution is not aligned well with our regression model. So we can see that my second hypothesis is not confirmed in this case, but and so that begs the question, like, what are these states with low tech sector percentage but high technology activity? What are these outliers? As we move over to these two maps, we can see that Montana, Minnesota, and Arkansas have relatively high activity on technology legislation, which we would not expect because they're quite rural states, along with California, which is of course a high-tech state. And in the House, we can see states such as Wyoming, Oregon, Colorado, and New Hampshire having a high activity, as well as being low tech activity states. So, oh, oops. So, one out of my two hypotheses was confirmed in the end.
Hmm.
Do you have any questions?
Now, when you say activity, what kind of bills are they putting forth? Is it to control technology or to control, to write in privacy laws or guidelines or?
Yeah. I know what you mean. So to
I'm
identify,
fumbling around, but
yeah. It's okay. Just so the way I identified what a technology bill was I used what I refer to here as the PAP Congressional Bills Dataset. PAP stands for the Policy Agendas Project. It's a project here at the University of Texas where we try to classify and code all of the bills introduced into Congress. And the way we do this by hand.
oh my gosh.
Oh, there's over 2,000 bills that I have to do. So it's easier if I have the data already made for me. But of course, this is over the span of like 30 years, 100th, 114th Congress. So this covers a huge array of technology issues from like rural broadband internet access to privacy issues to cyber security issues to regulating how internet copyright law. We have this huge document online that we use as our code book in order to classify each of these bills, and it contains over 400 codes ranging from like every topic imaginable, from like wage increases for circuit judges to welfare reform to pharmaceutical pricing schemes. And within that, we have a technology subsector. And within that, we have even more specific technology subtopics where we classify like what is a cybersecurity issue versus like let's say we're trying to like put towards like small business grants for software companies. Yeah. So, but this encapsulates all like technology related legislation. It's kind of a large topic.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why, there's this cluster in states that this, technology bill activity in states that have not big economic ties. So I was wondering what kind of bills they would have been introducing in those states, what their economic interest was. Maybe it's broadband.
I thought about this as well. And so as we can see, this state right here was like very surprising to me. It is the highest state in House activity. Oh, no. I was thinking this one. This one is the second highest in Senate technology activity. Yet is like quite low on the percentage of state economy. And that turned out to be Montana. The senator from Montana was the chair of the subcommittee on technology issues in the Senate for many years. Yeah, and thus had the honor of introducing many technology related bills into the Senate, even if they may not have passed because of how Senate seniority works. Committee chairs introduce a lot of legislation. So we can I thought about this as well. We can attribute this to a lot of different factors. I list here committee membership, ideological differences, which actually turned out not to be the case. We can see that the technology bill co-sponsorship between the two parties is pretty even. Different life experiences. So even just like one young senator being elected from like a low-tech state such as Montana, elected Amy Klobuchar in 2008, and at the time she was 42, I think, which is quite young for a senator. And so especially for like small states, we can see that like the just one member of Congress like that's young being elected from these states can throw off the results significantly.
Yeah.
each state only has 2 senators.
Now, I hadn't thought about this, but if someone is, let's say, a chair or second chair on a, say, technology committee,
Hmm.
how would they, if they're from a low tech state like Montana, how would they be supporting bills that are really pushed by other members of the committee or other issues raised in the House or Senate?
This is a very big question about like how
Yeah, I know.
like how do members of Congress decide what to legislate? It's kind of outside of the realm of this
Yes,
project.
yes. It just
But-
led me to think about it, what would
Yeah.
have prompted him to support bills and.
But I can tell you,
They really do try to, build bridges in their own state, sort of thing. The pork barrel thing you were talking about.
yeah, I can tell you that the Senate Subcommittee on Technology and Science is located within the Senate's Committee on Commerce, which is a little bit surprising. So every member of the Senate Subcommittee on Science and Technology is already a member of the Committee on Commerce. The Committee of
Okay.
Commerce is a low-ranking committee within the Senate. So as you may or may not know, the Senate has like their prestige committees and low prestige committees. So
Mhm.
prestige committees would be like foreign affairs, armed services, appropriations, like really important issues that every senator cares about. And assigned to these like committees are like high ranking, important senior senators. So for example, the head of the Armed Services Committee for years was like John McCain, really a well-respected senator. And thus he got this really prestigious committee assignment that he really cared about. Of course, being a Vietnam veteran, he really cared about Veterans Affairs.
Right.
So, but the Commerce Committee, on the other hand, is a low-ranking committee. So, like, this could cause like some problems with my research because it's a low-ranking committee. We can assume that members assigned to the Commerce Subcommittee are generally younger because they have low prestige within the institution.
Right. They're trying to work their way up. Yes, they get assigned the lower level things first.
And then we have to think about like what kind of states are people like more likely to choose commerce over other low-ranking committees. And there's so many that there's like it's not worth considering. There's a committee on public works. There's the committee on small business issues. There's the committee on.
Oh wow!
There's so many.
I didn't even know about some of these. Yeah. Okay. You have very substantial background awareness and information.
Committee on Agriculture. Thank you.
So, do you think that the states should have the right to enact their own technology laws, or should it come from the federal level?
This is kind of depends on what you consider like a technology law. Currently the way that technology is legislated is what we might think of like being soft technology issues, like freedom of speech, cybersecurity, the way that regulation of technology companies, so software issues basically. A lot of it is like quite hands-off from the federal government. A lot of these responsibilities are dealt to the FCC, which is a little bit rare for an issue that's like so in the news right now. This is probably because like many of the senators have a very like low life experiences with technology like issues and like don't feel comfortable with legislating like, oh, how do we regulate Twitter's ad policy in relation to like foreign actors? Like they just don't know enough about it. So they leave it up to the FCC, and that's where a lot of the like big decisions, like not big decisions, most important decisions about like technology policy are being created today.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
FCC.
This is very impressive, Alex.
Thank you. Ow.
You have used just obviously drawn on a vast amount of data and organized it in a very meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, another thing about this graph, the house graph, the map.
Mhm.
This is standardized to the number of Congress people from each of these states. So here we go. Oregon has I think they only have 5 Congress people right now. So I
Mhm.
divided like the number of bill co-sponsors from like Oregon Congress people divided by the average number of assigned Congress people they have during this time frame in order to create like a more balanced number, because
Mhm.
otherwise we would have states with like huge congressional
Population.
delegations like
Yeah.
California that would overwhelm this graph, and it would just be a population density map.
Mhm.
So I tried to standardize it based on like the per Congress people metric.
Mhm. Very smart. Very smart to do.
Ow.
I'm just reading some of your material here.
Mm-hmm. I tried to not put too much text on it. You know how it is.
Oh, I know. I'm very impressed. Is there a way I can capture this?
There's I can send you a website that has the poster on it. It's like on a UT website.
Great. Oh, that would be nice. I want to show it to a friend of mine who
Senator McCain? Oh wait, he's dead.
no, he was talking about I was telling him about your presentation, and he was a professor at George Mason, just retired in math and computer science, and
Yeah.
he said, "Oh, I trained my students to do presentations because that's how they're going to get business when they get out in the world. They
Mhm.
have to do presentations." And he said he was talking about too much text, not enough text, too many slides, not enough slides. He was going into the yours is very good. I just want to say, according to our discussion, yours is very good.
Thank you. I
can very quickly, it was very easy to follow you, number one. It's very easy for me to look back on it and remember what you said about it, what's significant about it. Very good.
Yeah. The way I collected like the co-sponsors on each of these bills was pretty hard. I had to learn a little bit of computer science in order to do it. So the way, yeah, because I have 2,000 bills. I'm not going to do that by hand, and I have to go to this website called GovTrack to find each of the co-sponsors. So I had to like do a little bit of coding, to scrape the information off the websites like individually, all 2,700 URLs.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that by hand.
Yes. I like your photograph
of Mark Zuckerberg.
Yes.
Testifying in front of the Senate.
Yes.
Quite the famous moment. He looks like a robot, no?
That's very good. I think that maybe you should
testify.
Figure out a way to educate congressmen on technology so they don't ask such idiotic questions. I heard the questions they ask,
what
the CEO
is
of Twitter
Facebook
and Facebook and all of these companies, and they were idiot questions.
Yeah.
They need help.
Mm-hmm. So, can you buy a Twitter at the grocery store?
That's about the level of the intelligence, yes. I was stunned.
What you're
by-
describing is a lobbyist.
Huh?
What you're
What?
describing is a lobbyist educating members of Congress on technology.
Yeah.
This,
Well, there you
the
got.
these
There
are
you've got a
lobbyists.
career. Whoa. Yes. They need educating terribly. Oh, these Senate hearings just make my head hurt,
I can't watch Senate hearings. So boring.
especially the ones on technology. I thought they were just especially atrocious. Usually they just act very superior. You know, better than thou, you crummy person sitting here testifying before me. You must have broken the law attitude. But on technology, they were just plain dumb. It was.
Like, describing the Oliver North hearing. Ha ha ha.
Okay, Gallup's most important problem poll found that between 2014 and 18, science and technology issues increased 100-fold.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an impressive piece of information.
It's a little bit misleading, but because, okay, the way that Gallup's poll works is that it only asks like one issue. You can only answer one issue.
Oh.
That's his most important problem. You don't rank them.
They
So
already defined the problem, huh?
yeah, like I think at the end, technology related issues was like the most important issue for 4% of people, which is actually like pretty good when you consider like 20% of people say unemployment and macroeconomic issues, because obviously that's going to be like way more important for a normal person if they're like unemployed than like
Yes,
how we legislate
exactly.
Twitter and like other important issues like defense spending, the situation in Syria, Russia collusion, welfare reform, universal health care, blah blah blah. All these like higher ranking issues are like obviously much more important and objectively more important.
Yeah. Well, as you say, when it affects your pocketbook, that becomes the most important right there. Everything else falls down to the wayside.
And it's also just like how the media covers like technology issues. I think okay, the way the media covers it is like really interesting because of how the way that media conglomerations work. Like, you know, for example, Disney, which is a huge rights holder of IP, also owns ABC News. They own ESPN. They own Sky News in the UK. So they can use these news platforms.
Sky News. Wait a minute, they own Sky News in the UK?
Yeah, they bought
I
it.
didn't know that. Oh, well, thank you. That's an interesting little sidebar. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
That caught my my ear.
So because they own all of these news outlets, they can use them to affect public opinion significantly on technology issues towards their favor. So, for example, are you familiar with what net neutrality is? Okay, so yeah, so Disney as a huge like media conglomerate would be against net neutrality, and they can use ABC News to like affect people's opinion on the matter. Wasn't there Verizon was like in talks to merge with like Time Warner, which would like further muddy the waters, and Time Warner owns CNN, right?
Well, Time Warner's owned by AT&T, right?
Yes, yeah, I confused Verizon and AT&T. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so all these media conglomerates, you know, they're so powerful. They
Yes.
they
Right. They
so
can
the way it
influence.
currently works, if the SEC is regulating it, like they have much more control over the situation than if like Congress put down like substantive and declarative new legislation on the matter. And instead of like the current status quo where the FCC can like be more easily manipulated because like there's so little like guidelines that are established in law about these issues that like the current like unclear status quo is advantageous to them.
Yeah.
You sound encouraged. Oh, I have a new participant. Oh, it's
I think
George.
someone's coming on.
Yep. Hello, George. George is remaining mute. So I'm just gonna tell George about my project if he ever makes himself alive.
Now it said funding for the project came from the undergraduate research awards. How did you need money to make all this happen? I guess you, in addition, of course, to much time, but
Yeah. So it's basically just a scholarship you apply for, and that's like it's available to like all undergraduates to fund their own research projects.
mhm.
This project was originally supposed to include a portion where oh, George left. George is my friend.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah. Oh, he just texted me. How's it going? Okay, that's kind of rude. He just left.
Oh, why? Or maybe he knew I was on there and he didn't want to interfere with someone else. He wanted to talk directly with you.
Yeah, but I could have made you leave.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Anyway, so yeah, so this project was supposed to include a portion where I travel to Washington and like talk to like lobbying groups and like I don't know people in the FCC.
Oh,
but-
Alex, that's so cool.
University sponsored travel is banned in the semester. Maybe
Yeah.
it'll occur in the summer, but it's looking up in the air.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That would have been so neat.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm sorry the world is made so topsy-turvy for you.
Let me text George.
So does this continue on into the summer for some portion of time?
No, this is basically it. The only my camera's wigging out. The only extra component for this is just to write a paper about it.
Uh-huh.
But like the substantive research is completed on my project.
Okay.
This project has lasted for the past school year, so this is the accumulation of like 10 months work.
Yeah.
George
Right.
says his Wi-Fi sucks. Yeah, so I had to do like in the first semester I did a lot of like reading papers, scholarly reviews about like pork barreling, committee assignments, just boring political science talk about like how do politicians decide which issues to legislate versus like just introduce bills on, and like why regional differences in activity on on like bills generally. So for example, in some issues it's much more common for senators in swing states to act more on like to introduce more bills into Congress, so they're being perceived as being more active, so their opponents have
the
less to
perception
challenge them
that
on.
I'm a good congressman. Yes, yes.
But like these deep entrenched Congress people are much more lax and have a laissez-faire attitude towards introducing new legislation.
That's interesting. Like our senior senator from South Carolina, people like that.
Strom
Graham.
Thurmond.
No, Lindsey Graham. I'm
Oh,
thinking.
Lindsey Graham. I was just thinking about Strom Thurmond. The last person that came before you, we had a discussion about Strom Thurmond.
Oh.
Lindsey Graham's not a
actually-
senator anymore, though. He's out. He was AG.
Died.
He died? Wait, he
Didn't
died?
die?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Wait.
He's out.
Oh, yeah, he died. He did die. He did die. Lindsey Graham. No, he's alive. Yeah, he's alive.
He is alive. Okay. He's just out of office.
Yeah, he's just no, he's in office. He's still a senator.
He's Thurman. He's still a senator, really?
No. I'm talking about Lindsey Graham. Strom
Oh,
Thurmond
Lindsey
died.
Graham is definitely
Yeah.
alive and definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Strom
he
Thurmond died in like 2004. He
Mhm.
was like 102 years old.
Yeah, he was very, very old. Yeah. Oh, your camera
Yeah.
you turned green.
Strom Thurmond, like, he resigned from Congress like less than a year before he died.
Yeah. I look at the age of so many of these people and I'm like, wow.
Well, you should feel well represented. See, the median age in the
Right there
Senate is
asleep at the
65.
wheel and not thinking about the future.
Well, that's the entire argument about my presentation. They don't care about tech because they don't use Twitters. They don't care.
Yeah,
All these-
exactly.
You know who cared about Twitter, though?
They need to be paying attention. But you're right. They don't know how anything like TikTok or whatever affects society or commerce, for that matter, or politics, voting.
Are you saying that politicians don't care about politics?
They don't understand how all of that is so important to them.
Oh,
They're
George is here. I'm gonna tell George about my project.
all right.
You can stay on if you wish.
Oh dear, George disappeared again.
Yeah, I don't know. George is. I think he's in the car right now.
Hmm.
Oh, he is in the car.
Yes, it looks like he's in a car. But he put a background on, so it looks like the Golden Gate Bridge is back of him.
Yes, George, this is my grandma.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice
normal-
to meet you.
Normally, I have the Senate behind me, but I'm in a car on the way to Oklahoma, so that's why.
Oh, Oklahoma! Wow.
Yes,
George lives in Houston.
I live in Northwest Houston.
Hmm?
All right. So, George, would you like to hear about my project? You've heard this
Yeah,
before,
go
though.
ahead. No, well, I really wasn't paying attention the
Okay.
first time you did it because
That's
I was
really
getting
rude.
COVID tested. I was getting COVID tested. That's why I left class early.
You were multitasking.
Just multitasking, yes.
All right, let's calm down here. So, what was my research goal? So, I'm gonna say the exact same things I said before. By the way, can we use?
Good,
Oh,
good.
my camera's wigging out. Let me just fix this. I gotta plug my camera back in. There we go. All better now. So,
May I ask a question just before you start?
yes.
Why do you have a jar of pickles up at the top, or are those chili peppers?
Yes, they're pickles. So this program that me and George are both in that like helped me get like the funding and provided guidance for my research is called the JJ Pickle Research Program. JJ Pickle was a famous congressperson from Texas.
Yes. Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's
So there is a
why.
reason for the pickles up there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, or the pickles.
Very clever. Very clever.
That's the pickle logo. Anyway, so what was my research goal? So to begin this project, this question guided all of my research. Can we use a couple demographic indicators, in this instance, home state and age, to explain members of Congress's activity on technology-related bills? So what inspired me to think of this research question? So first, elderly members of Congress have been widely criticized of their mishandling of technology policy in the 21st century, and technology companies have been accused with tampering with our democracy and electoral process. Congress has shown a hesitancy to act on these important technology issues, despite the fact that there is clearly a large thirst for new legislation on the matter. Technology is an issue that mainly affects young people, and Congress and congressional leadership is getting older and older and thus less in touch with the technology interests of our nation's youth. So, how did I quantify this metric? I drew two hypotheses. First, younger politicians having a stronger connection to tech issues will support more technology legislation. And secondly, technology will be a higher legislative priority for members of Congress from states in which the technology sector is a major economic contributor. How did I do this? I identified all the technology bills introduced between the 100th and 114th Congresses, and from that, I identified all the co-sponsors to create these two graphs. This top graph represents the age distribution for all technology bill co-sponsors in that time frame, and this bottom graph represents the age distribution for all members of Congress generally. On the top we have the Senate, and on the bottom we have the House, and again in the bottom graph. As we can see, the median age for the technology bill co-sponsorship group is significantly younger in both the House and the Senate compared to the general group, with 61 being the median in the Senate for a technology group, and 65 generally, 56 in the House for the technology group, and 59 generally. After doing my statistical analysis, this proved to be a statistically significant differences of the means, confirming my first hypothesis. However, my second hypothesis, from which I generated this second graph with the percent of the state economy in which the tech sector makes up being the X variable, and the Y variable being the activity for members of Congress on from each of these states on technology legislation, we can see that this regression that I drew is not emblematic of the data being displayed on this graph, thus not confirming my second hypothesis, thus proving that home state GDP in the technology sector is not an accurate indicator.
That's cool. That's some good research.
Wow. Thank you, George. Your compliments mean the world to me.
Thank you. So, did you choose 100 Congress just because that's like when there were first technology issues or technology bills, or what was the specificity behind the 100th Congress?
Yeah. So the 100th Congress began in 1987, and the 114th Congress ended in 2016. That was the most recent data I could get. But I chose that date because, one, there was a significant ramping up of technology legislation in the 1990s, and two, I considered like the beginning of the 1990s to be like a new era of science and technology issues in the Senate. So, for example, in the 1960s and 70s, a lot of the technology issues being introduced were related to NASA, which are not really like within the scope of what I would consider like technology legislation in the modern sense, and like isn't something that I wanted to include in my data set.
Okay, yeah, because that's what I kind of thought,
Mhm.
but I wasn't too sure. But that's what I figured for the 100th, because
Also-
technology, even though it's been
Yeah.
our whole life, it's been around, or it hasn't been around that long.
Yeah. Also, 100 is just a cool number, you know?
Yeah, it's better than like 101 or
Mhm.
90.
I thought about doing 101 because it would start in like 1990. But I was like, nah, just go 100th. Might as well.
Yep,
It looks better on a graph.
yeah, it does. It looks better than my research, so that's good.
Oh,
What is your research project, George?
So I did my research project over political party platforms and like how political parties compete, and I looked at the issue of abortion and gun control to see if they added those issues to their platform at the same time or at different times, and I found out that they had both of the issues. 1968, you have the shooting of Bobby Kennedy. Gun control issues both got added to both party platforms in 1968, and then 1976 you have Roe v. Wade, and then they add abortion issues both at the same time. But what I found was interesting is that Democrats are pro, women's right to choose, and they're pro gun control. But on the gun control part, from 2004 to 2016, we had multiple shootings, but it was like a constant. They didn't add any more issues to their platform based on that. And then as abortion's gone across over time, it has been that Republicans have a higher, number of abortion subtopics, while the Democrats do not, which I thought was interesting. And yes, I am presenting tomorrow. So if you're interested, stop by and I'll go more in depth.
Okay. Alex, you'll have to send me the the sign-on code for George's.
Sure thing.
Hi, Jasmine.
Hi.
All right. George, you have any other questions?
I think that is it. This is a good presentation, good research.
Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
You know, knowing how polished your project is, that really means the world to me.
Oh my gosh, quit being so sarcastic. You know my project's horrible.
No, George. We'll all see tomorrow. George's project will be like a nirvanic experience, just pure
Oh.
ecstasy.
Well,
two
you know
straight
what? Dr. Jones came and he said I had one of the best projects he had seen. So I was like, wow.
That's a low bar. Have you seen the people in our class?
I'm
You
just
didn't see
like-
mine too. He never came to mine.
I didn't even know he was there. He just popped on and scared the crap out of me. But okay, well, I will see you tomorrow. It was nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you, George.
And y'all have a great rest of y'all's day.
Okay.
Bye, George. Good luck in
Bye.
Oklahoma.
Thank you. Bye.
George is Choctaw, I think. So he has to go to Oklahoma to get medical work done because he can get free medical work done on the reservation.
Wow. Are you serious? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Who knew Indian reservations had socialized medicine?
I didn't know you would go there for medical care. I never thought about it being free and
He doesn't have.
it being worth any good.
Wow, that is offensive.
Well, I unfortunately they haven't been treated well. So
Yeah, that's why he's always in the car. He's driving to Oklahoma. He lives in Houston. It's like a 5-hour drive each
yeah,
way.
I know it's not a light trip.
All right. No, I'll do the link later. I'll send you George's link. Actually, no, I'll do it right now. I'll put it in chat. This won't be too
I don't
hard.
have chat.
No, it's Zoom chat.
Oh, Zoom chat. Okay.
George. Website's being slow. Here's the link to George's website. You can find my work on the same website if you just search for my name. So you can look at my poster there too if you want later.
Okay, I need to. Let me see. Can I copy this? Let me see.
All right. Just click it. All right, so I'm going to present my project to Jasmine now. If you please mute yourself.
Oh,
All right.
me?
Yes.
You want me to mute myself?
You know, I would like a nice steady silence while I present my project for the first time to her. No more interrupting questions in the middle of me doing my speech. Alright, she didn't mute herself, but okay.
I did mute myself. I did mute myself.
No, like in Zoom. There you go. Now you're muted. Alright, so the Silicon Hill, what affects congressional technology activity? So this is the so first, I tried to decide a research goal in order to guide all of my research. So for this, I decided on the question, can we use a couple demographic indicators, in this instance, home state and age, to explain members of Congress's activity on technology-related bills? So, what caused me to choose this topic? First, elderly members of Congress have been widely criticized for their mishandling of technology policy in the 21st century. Technology companies have been accused with tampering with our democracy and electoral process. There is obviously and clearly a huge thirst for new technology legislation in recent years, and that technology issues mainly affect young people, with Congress and congressional leadership getting older and older and thus less in touch with the technology issues of our nation's youth. So, how did I choose to quantify these two problems? And for this, I developed these two hypotheses. First, that younger politicians having a stronger connection to tech issues will support more technology legislation And second, that technology will be a higher legislative priority for members of Congress from states in which the tech sector is a major economic contributor. So to do this, I collected all of the technology-related bills introduced between the 100th and 114th Congresses. That's 2,700 bills. And after that, I identified all the co-sponsors for all of these bills, about 7,500 co-sponsors in total. And after doing this and collecting all the biographical data for my members of Congress, I created these two graphs. The top graph represents the age distribution for all technology bill co-sponsors in the time frame, and the bottom graph represents the age distribution for all members of Congress generally. As we can see, and also we have House on the bottom and Senate on the top in both graphs. As we can see, the median age for the technology bill co-sponsor group is significantly younger than the general group, with the median age in the Senate for technology bill co-sponsors being 61 compared to 65, a 4-year difference between the general group. And then in the House, we see a 3-year difference, with 56 being the median age for the technology bill co-sponsor group and 59 in the general group. I did a 2-sample t-test, and it surpassed the conventional levels of statistical significance, confirming my first hypothesis to be true. Then, for my second hypothesis, the state economy hypothesis, I created this graph with the x-axis being the percent of the state economy in which the tech sector makes up, versus on the y-axis, the activity on technology legislation for each member of Congress in each of these states. So on the far right, we have high tech states in which the tech sector is a huge part of the state economy, such as Washington, California, Massachusetts, and Georgia. And on the far left, we have states with low technology activity, such as Wyoming, Oklahoma, West Virginia, etc. As we can see, these two regressions I plotted are not representative of the data, and this is again confirmed by low R-squared values, indicating that there is not a strong relationship here, meaning that my second hypothesis was not confirmed, and that home state GDP in the technology sector is not an accurate indicator. However, all in all, 1 out of 2 of my hypotheses were confirmed, and that makes me pretty happy. Any questions?
How did you choose your statistical significance as 0.001? It seems pretty low.
So, as you will learn as you take statistic courses in college, the p-value is used in order to determine like different levels of statistical significance. So, like a p-value of 0.05 is typically the value, like if your p-value on the stats test is lower than 0.05, we see that as being like a really, really strong indicator that like whatever you're testing is like correct results. And because my p-value is so small, it was actually like 6 times 10 to the power of -7, which is very, very small. It means that my results are very, very significant, which just like proves that my hypothesis is like very true. Basically, like what this 2-sample t-test is, do you know what that is?
Yeah, we did in stats.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, what it proves is that these two, like, between the, I actually had to do two sample t-tests. So I compared, like, this 61 median with this 65 median, and, like, because there's, like, so many data points, there's, like, over 7,000, that these two medians are, like, are considered like statistically different, meaning that the two data sets, like the technology data set in the Senate and the general Senate data set, are like statistically separate in their median ages. Any other questions? Yeah, usually you try to get like in social science research, it's hard to get like a really low p-value, because, you know, human behavior is like much less predictable than in natural sciences if you're doing like a physics lab or something. So typically in social sciences, you try to get a p-value of less than 0.05, which is like a 5% margin for error. But if you can get less than 0.001, you're flying high, you're doing well. Yeah, as you can see, the r squareds here are not very good. You try to get an r squared of above 0.9 usually, or at least 0.8, but mine were 0.045. An r squared of like 0.4 can be interpreted as like 4% of the 4% of the relationship in this graph can be explained by this regression, which is obviously terrible. This is a very comfortable silence. Did you figure out George's website okay? No? You just click it. It's so easy. Hold on, let me share my screen. All right, so we go to Zoom chat, and I sent you this link, and you just click it, and then here's George's website, and then you're muted.
I tried to do that and it told me the website was not available.
Really? Jay, can you try it?
It worked for me.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Okay. It's definitely me.
Here, maybe I can copy the Zoom link. Oops, didn't work. What just happened? Cancel.
I'm on utpostersession.org and it says your search did not match any documents.
Yeah, so maybe you can just like click on home. You can see on my screen, and then like search for George's name. His name is George Strong.
Mm-hmm.
He's very strong. And oh, I paused the share by accident. Oops.